Hi, my name is Jude Matulich-Hall, and this is Titles, Talk, and Tipples. I'm your host, and I'll be chatting with Suzanne Craig-Whytock. She's the author of The Dome and Smile. Go ahead.
And I'm tippling right now.
You're tippling right now. I'm tippling on Viognier by my father. I'm drinking my father's wine.
Oh, nice, nice.
From Plymouth, California.
Yeah, it's funny because my dad and I also bottle wine together. We do it like through one of the stores, right? It's not like we don't make our own wine. We get them to put it in a bottle for us. But Viognier is one of my favorites. And I'm from Ontario, Canada, where we have a really great, there's lots of wine country in Ontario, and particularly what they call the Beamsville Bench, where they do grow some of our own Viogniers here. It's a really difficult grape to grow in our climate, but there are some places that do it. I personally right now am drinking a lovely Canadian oak Chardonnay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's a little different from your French or American oak. It's actually uses oak trees from along the Grand River, along Brantford area, Grand River, and it's Canadian oaked. And it's very oaky, and it's really, really buttery and just fantastic for a Friday night after a long week.
Yeah. This is really buttery too. I mean, my lighting isn't that great, but it's got a little bit of fog to it, but the legs are amazing. I have some bones out for you. So
yes,
wearing bones.
That's the theme. Absolutely, bones are a good theme.
I actually am wearing the scapula of a cat.
Oh,
they're real.
I love it.
I did not hurt the cat. So here,
very nice.
Cheers.
Cheers to the cat. Cheers to cat writing. Cheers to the cat.
Cheers to everything. So,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about our process with writing. So it's a really broad area, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
So is there anything specific that you'd like to touch on?
In terms of the writing process?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because of course I've published, well, I haven't published, but I've been published twice now by so my main publisher is Bookland Press here in Canada, and I've published 2 young adult novels so far, and then I have a third one coming out this I think May, June, which is it's an adult, and I hate saying adult fiction because people are always like, is it porn? No, it's not porn.
Erotica. Yeah.
No, it's not young adult. It's a supernatural thriller coming out, which is more kind of in line with the way my mind's been working the last couple of years. And then, of course, I have a new American publisher, Potter's Grove Press, who's putting out my first short story collection in the summertime. So the writing process for me has been a little interesting because I've been kind of simultaneously, I finalized the novel at the same time that I was working on the short story collection. And I actually was able to incorporate a couple of the elements from the novel into the short story collection and some of the different stories, which has a bit of a theme running through it too. But I mean, I work full time as well, and I find the weekends are just packed. It's work, and then thinking of ideas, writing them down, and then the weekend comes and it's like hammering it all out. Plus, I have a website where I publish a blog every Sunday. So on top of that, I've got to write about 1,000-word humor essay. As my aunt likes to tell me, I'm just not that funny in person, but I do write a humor blog. So I try to make that funny at the same time that I'm writing these very dark kind of, supernatural or spooky, twisty stories. So yeah, I'm running the gamut right now, but it's all good. The process for me is really just kind of keeping notes all week and waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and thinking, oh my God, that's a great idea. I write it down on the phone and then try and capture it. And then on the weekend, putting it all together and trying to write it out. But yeah, that's more the process for me. I am a real, I think they say, are you a pantser or a plotter? Yeah. I'm very much a plotter. I don't, like right now, over to my left is a notebook where I've plotted out the sequel to my new supernatural thriller, The Seventh Devil. And I have all the chapters, like 2 lines for each chapter, because I'm planning to write a sequel. And I started the first chapter last week. So
are you really meticulous with your structure, the outline, or is it kind of just
I try to
I
get
do.
down like,
It's like,
yeah,
it's
it's
just a
like,
list.
yeah, a basic frame, right? It's kind of like what's going to happen, a basic frame. And then as I start to write, I'm thinking, oh, that would be cool to include that, or, ooh, what about this? And, maybe this should happen too. And so I add as I go along, but for the most part, I try to sketch out like at least a basic plot arc, like here's what's going to happen in the beginning. And then we're going to do this, 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 this. And this is going to be the climax, and then we'll get to the end. But yeah, along the way, things, the content might change, but I've always got that basics frame there. So yeah, short stories are a little bit different. They just kind of come to me. I don't even know half the time. Like I'll just be like, well, that's a cool idea. And it's like,
with my outline, it's just a list. And sometimes I'll do the 1 and the A and then the little one,
all right, the sub list,
yeah,
sub list.
It's like it looks professional, but if you look really closely, it's not that professional.
Yeah. What are you working on right now?
I am working on my second novel. It's a pirate parallel world. It takes place on Earth, but there's parallel worlds involved, and it's an epic fantasy. So it's got like elves and ogres and
cool.
So it's kind
of, you had me at pirates, so
I outlined that one. It was I did not outline my first novel. My first novel was just a huge epiphany. I mean, I knew that thing from start to end before I even started it. It was really magical. That one was. And this one, I had actually not planned on writing it. But the publisher that picked up, White Cat Publications, picked up my first novel, and he suggested that I write an epic fantasy, and I was like, what's an epic fantasy? It's really long. It's really long, and it's really fantastical. I'm like, okay. I even Googled like, what is
epic fantasy?
I Googled the simplest things, and the answer when it pops up, but I cover all my bases. So magical worlds and all that, and there was a bit of that in the first one. And so what I ended up doing was I had this idea in the back of my mind that after this trilogy I was going to write this pirate novel that it actually ended up being characters from the first novel. And I loved the characters so much that I was like, one day I'm going to write a novel about these guys.
That's great.
And so he told me that my publisher told me, think about what you would want to write about, and we'll just chat about it. I think you can do that. I think you can tackle this, was what he said. And so I thought about it, and then in our meeting I asked, well, what about pirates? Can I write a fantasy novel about pirates? And
how do you feel
like,
about
absolutely, pirates are great.
Awesome.
So
pirates are great.
And so
fantasy pirates are the best. I love pirates. I always think of Johnny Depp and Pirates of the Caribbean as like the epitome of the best pirate ever. But there's so many cool things you can do with that whole genre of pirate fantasy, and the hero anti-hero. It's very cool.
And the mythology is always fun. The monsters.
And
there's this magical aspect, but there's like this realistic aspect too. That so you kind of dwell in like, oh, what the world was like in the 1700s, and that word 1700s is where I'm dealing with.
Absolutely. So that's great. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. And but it's funny because talking about outlines, I got halfway through my outline, and I just a few days ago I got to this point, and this huge point. It's a turning point in the novel, but I was at 150,000 words, which I know that doesn't mean anything much to people that don't write, but it's like, this is huge.
I swear, like the most, I think my longest book right now has been 248 pages. I am not one of those people that can write epic. I just can't do it. Short stories, like flash fiction, that's more my genre. I think my new book is maybe 100. It's 189 pages. I know. I think that's 53,000 words. Like, don't ask me to squeeze another syllable out of that. Like, Yeah, that's just the way I am. Like I get it. I just like done.
You know, that's funny though, because if I had thought about it before tackling it, I would have been like, no way.
Yeah.
He said at first, he said 130,000 words. And my first novel,
Yeah.
I ended it at 130,000 words, but then I trimmed it back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I know I can do 130. You know, that's if I'd known that by the time I'm done, this is going to be somewhere between 180, 200,000
Yeah.
maybe. I'm going to try to stick to 180, but if I'd known
Yeah.
ahead of time, I would have been scared.
Yeah, I can't even like it seems so intimidating to me. But I mean, I edit as I go as well. So,
Oh.
you know, I know lots of people write a lot and then cull back, but I mean, as I go, I edit. So I'll write a chapter and then I'll go back to it right away and edit it down.
That's
Like I
yeah.
basically edit as I go. So by the time I'm done, it's pretty well in its finished form, and it's just some minor tweaking from there. But no, I'm just like, and I think because I write I write a lot of first person narrative. So I think, let's see, yeah, all my books so far have been first person narrative, and you know, you can't do a lot of, I think that's where more content comes in when you have other voices. So like this, you know, my second novel actually had two narrators. It was a brother and sister. And so the story was told in alternating chapters from both their perspectives, but still like you're not getting those other voices coming in where you can start building content from there. So I keep it fairly trim.
Yeah,
I think that's, yeah.
I write in third person. I mean, I do kind of, I play with that a little bit. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's the universal voice, you know, looking down, and then other
Yeah.
times it's directly from. So I kind of waver back and forth between the two.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I think for me, I think partly because I work, like I said, I work full time.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty hectic pace. So I just, if I can squeeze the writing in and get it done, I'm happy. But yeah, one of these days I'm planning to do something that's a little bit more expansive, like, because I love world building, right? And world building, it's fantastic, but you have to have the time to be able to sit there and really explore it. So that's maybe down the road for me. But yeah, I mean, my first book, I think, was this is like how thick it was, right? My second book, this is how thick it was. So,
yeah, so
you get better at it as you go.
Right.
Yeah. And the new short story collections, there's 27 short stories in it, which I'm pretty proud about. Yeah. So
wow, all of them?
No, it's they're all within the last 2 years.
Wow. 27.
Yeah, I mean, I spent years and years not writing really at all. I mean, I wrote a lot when I was a teenager, early 20s, and then kind of put it aside. And then I started writing again because I was a high school teacher for about almost 25 years. And I used to run the, creative writing club, and I started kind of writing along with the kids. And so my first novel came out of a character sketch that I wrote as part of the creative writing club. And I started really getting back into writing, and then I switched jobs and I wasn't teaching anymore. So I had more time, I was still working a lot, but more time to think about writing, and started, then on the weekends, putting my thoughts down. So it's only in the last couple of years that I really started exploring short stories again, because I used to love writing short stories, and I started writing those again. And over the last 2 years, I've created a collection. And then I think the last 6 months of what is it now? Is it 2021? I don't even remember what year it is. The last 6 months of 2020.
What happened to the last year? Oh,
no. Yeah. I started really powering through it, like really all of a sudden the creative force just hit, and I started writing a lot of short stories in the last part of 2020, and then put them together. And so on New Year's Day, I had this collection of about like 20, 25, 26 stories. And I just thought, what the heck, I'm going to send them out. And see what happens. That's my New Year's. I don't make New Year's resolutions ever, but I thought, well, this is my New Year's resolution, is that today I'm going to send this collection out and see if it gets picked up. And yeah, a couple of months later, I heard back from Potter's Grove that they loved it. They wanted to publish it, and I was thrilled. What if?
Yeah.
Like, okay, here's the situation, but what if?
Yeah.
And I go from there, right? So yeah, and they were fine with that minimal for previously published, but yeah, there's some in there that you might have seen that would not be in the collection.
Oh, that's great. That's exciting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm thrilled to bits.
I recently, it was probably a year ago. Yeah, it was definitely last summer.
Who even knows anymore, right? It's
Just
like,
recently, I read. I love Ray Bradbury, and so I
oh yes, yes,
the master of the creepy short story, right?
yes.
And I was super inspired to when I finished my novel. My first novel. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was just like I was sending it out, and of course, you get zillions of rejections when you
Yep.
start.
And they're done that.
And I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And so I picked up somewhere. It was like, well, some article. I mean, I read so many articles and everything. I can't even tell you who I read that said, get short stories published so that you can show, for your novel, you can show that, hey, I've had some short stories published and publishers will take you more seriously. And so I started.
I did it backwards.
Yeah, I did some short stories and I sent them out. I think that the first one was pretty bad because I had just gotten into writing, and the novel was so inspired that I totally jumped the rails and went down this completely other path. It was like some weird mystery thing, and mystery is really hard to write. I think.
They are really hard to write. Yeah.
So I did that, and I was just getting into the group. I actually took excerpts from my novel at first. It was like learning how to walk again or something, because I had gone like 25 years. How old am I? Yeah, so like 25 years without writing. And
yeah, like me, right? Like I stopped when in my 20s and picked it back up again in my 40s. Yeah. Actually late 40s, because I was my first novel. I'm almost 56. My first novel came out when I was 52.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
And I know what you mean. And short story writing is very, very different, right? It's
right. You can't.
It's very different.
Yeah, you can't do world building, but it has to feel like this world already exists, like it's solid.
Yeah.
And, you're there. And so and the character has this background, and you kind of have to make the character believable without going into too much detail. So yeah, it was really,
and you basically have like the first paragraph to really engage the reader, otherwise they're like, nah.
You have like
it's quick, right? Like people don't give it a lot of a chance. Like you gotta be right in there with what's gonna happen. And but I love short stories though. I mean, I love writing them because it's just, you get an idea and you can just do it right then and there, like boom.
Yeah. And Ray Bradbury, he said write one short story a week.
Yeah.
I still haven't lived up to, but when you're writing novels, I think it's okay to not.
Yeah. But sure, absolutely.
But so I tried doing that. I was like, just get it out, right? 7 days, write a story. And so what I was trying to do was 4 days of writing the story and then 3 days of editing it and then send it off. I think I ended up doing like 7 before I got exhausted. Like, how do you do
it's brutal, right? Like you send them out.
You have a day job.
But I mean, and I know that, and I always figure, because all of these places, they get so many submissions, but like I would write something and be like, this is an awesome story, this is amazing, everybody's gonna, and then it'd be like, no thanks. I'm like, what?
This isn't
for us. Like this story? I know. Yeah, but it was good because then I went back and did a lot of revisions, right, and then put them together in a collection. I think as a collection they hold together much better. And there's like more, because actually there's kind of a common theme, and in each section of the short story collection, there's like a character that kind of reappears throughout, Mr. Death. And, I created the kind of this character that you see throughout the collection. So, I mean, there's more cohesiveness in a collection than these one-offs, and people can really see more what you're about than, they don't know you from Adam. When you send out a short story to a journal, they don't know who you are, and they don't know the context of your writing and what this means. So, I mean, it's better to, be able to put them all together like that. But there's a fantastic rush though, when you send something out and they're like, we want to publish it. Oh my God. Yeah.
They could give me 50 cents and I would be happy.
I know. I never got paid a darn thing for any of the ones. I mean, I've been published in a few different literary journals, blessed to be, but, never got paid for it, and that's fine. I mean, you know, I don't need to be paid for it. I'm just thrilled to bits to see it. You know, you go online, and you're like, there's this literary magazine online. There's your story in it. It's like, oh, it's so
Yeah,
cool.
it is.
Yeah, so cool.
Definitely.
I know there's a real rush to it, but I mean, yeah, and it's nice too to have the hard copy. Like, you know, my Ontario, my Canadian publisher, like these, to hold it in my hand for the first time, like, oh, such a thrill. And I'm so excited as well with the next two. And I hadn't planned on having two books come out this year, but
Yeah.
you know, so the novel, and then of course, you know, Potter's Grove graciously offered to publish the short stories, and with a publication date of this July, because I was thinking, I'm never going to see that till probably another year, and they're like, no, we're prioritizing it for July.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was thrilled to bits. Yeah.